Hey guys, welcome to a very exciting edition of Call Center Tips. Today we'll be discussing troubleshooting issues, right? So the objective is that we want to educate you on how to technically solve issues. So a lot of customers call in to tech support and we see a huge gap in terms of how agents respond back. There's actually a proper schema behind that, and this tutorial is going to make sure that you understand the best way of troubleshooting technical issues at the call center end. So let's begin. The schema that we've invented actually has four core areas, right? And the first part is scope requirements, diagnosis, root cause, and solution. And we're going to be walking you through each important step. Now let's understand the scope, right? So when a customer actually calls you, there could be four permutations. A, it could be a bug. B, it could actually be a feature request. C, it's an environmental factor. Or D, it's really an issue with the system and you need to actually configure it accordingly. So again, scope, customer calls you in and it's a feature request. It could be a bug, it could be configuration management, or it could typically be environmental factors that are causing it. You need to clearly understand the scope when the customer calls in. So listen attentively when you are trying to understand what the customer is trying to achieve. Now let's actually go into the diagnosis stage. Now the objective is what is causing the root issue, right? I mean, what's the cause here? What's the root cause? Now the only way that you can actually diagnose something is when you are truly an expert. You need to be a thorough expert of the functionality as well as the system architecture. If you are not that savvy and you're not that technical in terms of the expertise, then we have a very big issue here. According to the results and surveys that we've done, over 85% of issues stem from the fact that the agent couldn't technically correlate the issue and diagnose it properly. Now, many of times, if you are an expert and it's still not working out, one of the issues could be that it's working fine on your end, but the environmental factors at the customer end isn't working effectively. I'll give you an example. You have a software application that's allowing to print fine at your end, but the customer claims that that software isn't allowing to print a bill perhaps. Now, there could be many permutations there, right? The printer might be different, it might be out of paper, it might be on a network and the network is down. So you really need to understand functionality versus the current states. The other perspective is under the banner of current functionality and current states is an example of it theoretically should be working as per certain perspectives, but it's not actually working correctly at the customer premises. It's just like a car. You know that when you turn it on, it should work fine, but when you turn it on and the ignition doesn't work, you immediately know that it might be related to the battery. Similarly, you need to be very technically focused, understand environmental factors, and thoroughly understand the difference between how the system should work and what's actually happening live at the customer's premises. Once you've actually gone through this, then we recommend going into the customer access monitoring mode. Many of times that what we see in the environment or call centers is that technical people immediately just go to the customer access monitoring phase. We don't really recommend that. Well, it depends upon the industry that you're in, but imagine that you could easily answer the question by just asking the right questions and having a thorough understanding of the system architecture. You could have actually resolved it immediately. Customer access monitoring should only be used when you really know that you need to duplicate the issue and it's not typically a configuration management issue at the end. Now, the root cause. When you go into the root cause, you really need to understand configuration management, environmental factors that we discussed, or it could be a bug. In configuration management, what we highly recommend is you have process of elimination and you provide that information to your customers. So if you've actually fixed an issue and it was simply configuration management where there were certain steps that need to have been configured, we highly advise that you have process of elimination, steps, videos, any kind of customer education material to send it to them. Environmental factors. If there is an environmental factor that's beyond your scope, then you need to lock it down, make sure that the customer thoroughly understands that it's not related to your specific application or product line, and he or she needs to go to a third stakeholder to figure those things out. Or The last thing could be that you've actually diagnosed it and it's really a bug. It wasn't something that you could configure and it's not related to environmental factors. The solution, whenever, and this is one of the most important parts, and this is where 80% of people get it wrong. If you are providing a solution to a customer, make sure that you provide the timelines. Many of times you say, okay, yes, we have a solution for you and we'll get back to you immediately. Don't. You need to say that we've understood the issue. You've actually accepted that this is an issue and it needs to be resolved. So you say that I'm going to actually place this into R&D and they will resolve this within 4 hours. Customer education. If it's a configuration management issue, we highly recommend that you educate the customer. Why? Because of the fact that when you don't educate the customer, he or she is going to repeatedly ask you for the same feature set or configuration moving on. I'll give you an example. If a customer wants to modify a certain patient or a client profile, and you've actually done that immediately by being proactive and helping him out, but what you're doing is you are making sure that the customer calls you again for the same issue. So you want to really decrease the frequency of the same issue being posed to your call center repeatedly, right? And that's one of the KPIs. The last but not the least is the risk management. Sometimes you are, you don't recommend certain solutions or configurations for a particular customer, but because of this specific need and requirement, there might be certain risks associated with that. And we highly recommend that you document all of those risks, because in case of any kind of calamity or the system actually goes down, there's actually documented proof that the vendor actually gave their perspective and outlined the risks accordingly. These are the tips. I hope they were very beneficial. Use the schema, understand the ideology, implement this based upon this, and you would see a very strong and successful call center experience for your organization and for the customer as well. Best of luck.